I also visited Jamaica back in the days in the grill. I was, I was a young, wild partying guy.
Right.
So at the last second, I decided to take a nice big Jamaican bud, and stuff one between my toe, my big toe, and the toe next
Wow,
to it.
did that actually work?
I did it on each foot. So we're talking. I had about, we call it the emerald eyeball.
Sure.
Each bud was about 1.5 grams. So
Okay.
at most maybe an eighth.
Jesus.
So I had it inside my shoe, like I
Right.
said, between
Okay.
the big
Got
between
it.
the big
I
toe and the other toe.
got the picture
and
in
of
my
course,
mind.
well wrapped. This is not a toe jam situation.
Thank goodness.
So what actually happened is, we came into the airport, and I was like, it looks like I'm the big time smuggler, and I'm the
my
man.
God, Jesus.
And that exact moment, Sheriff Lobo walked out, right? And I'm like, oh no. And he had a huge German Shepherd with him,
Right.
and it was time for a sniffari, right? And I'm like, oh no,
Right.
So I had thought in those days that the dog would bark if it smelled
Right.
drugs, but I was
No,
wrong
they
about that.
just
So what happened is Sheriff Lobo walked over with this huge German Shepherd,
Right.
and I've got an emerald eyeball of stinky Jamaican weed between.
So what happened? Did
in
the dog
each shoe.
start barking?
So I had it in my head that the dog needed to bark in
Sure.
order to alert Sheriff Lobo,
Right.
who was grossly overweight, that someone had, drugs or
Sure.
what was known as contraband,
Contraband, yeah.
in their possession. So I'm like, if I don't hear a bark, it's all good.
Right.
So the dog comes down the line, ignoring a lot of people. And I'm like, hey, wait a minute, what's going on here? The dog's ignoring everybody,
Right.
And finally, the dog, starts zooming down the line faster, and I'm like, oh, it's just going to be a blur. But then it decided to stop in front of me, and I said, well, as long as it doesn't bark, everything's okay. At that exact moment, Sheriff Lobo had a terrible attack of prickly heat in his left inner thigh, and he started scratching, and he ignored the dog. At that exact moment that he was scratching his body part in a most vulgar fashion in front of hundreds of people in the airport, that's when the dog decided to attempt to sit its big fat ass right down on my foot. And just as the dog's bottom was about to reach sportswear, well, not sportswear, footwear, Sheriff Lobo turned around and yanked the leash in, said, Oscar, let's go. And I didn't think about it till later. And I said to myself, well, you know what? It wasn't even a close call because the dog didn't bark. He was trying to sit on my foot. And then I found out later I would have been like super busted.
Oh, my God.
Yes. Talk about exactly.
Oh,
So there's the true
my
story of Tommy LaRue comes back from Jamaica.
Oh, Mr. LaRue, you don't know how lucky